and welcome to the Big Apple Scroll podcast. My name is Sam.
And my name is Mike.
And today we're asking what's the crack about? Art. So we're going to look about what is art in our own individual estimations, what our experiences with art have been in school and in other places. Do we go to galleries? Do we like modern art? What artists we respect? Have we had our own personal art disasters? And such questions like that. So sit tight. Are you sitting comfortably?
I'm so comfortable that I'm going to fall asleep.
Don't do that. Well, so guys, if you hear him snoring, you'll know what's happened. What is art in your estimation, Mike?
What is art? You know, I pondered this question.
What is art?
No, it's a very important question. It's something I've pondered for about a decade before I concluded an answer.
Wow. Guys, this is a decade's work.
A decade's worth of pondering. To me, an art is an expression of an individual, not a group, but an individual. Ultimately, any art.
It can't be a group.
But that is being challenged. That thought is also being challengeable as well because of the new forms of art that's arriving today.
Okay.
But an expression of an individual that reflects the artist's feelings, thoughts, and beliefs.
Okay.
Yeah. So, their fears, their love.
A little bit of themselves.
Right. Inevitably, art reflects its creator.
Okay.
And it is usually always an individual in the end.
Right.
Yeah, for now. And that's changeable in the future.
I would also say that art has, I would like to say that it has talent involved. It has thought involved, maybe planning too. And it's, for me, I mean, that's what I would say. It's got some talent displayed. It's my estimation of art. Did you do art in school?
I did do art in school,
I guess
indeed.
that's a silly question, right?
But I did it as an year 11 and 12 elective.
Yeah.
It was one of my great loves.
Right. So you were a keen art student.
Yes. But I didn't truly appreciate art until I became an adult after school.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And what was the typical lesson in your school? Lesson?
It was boring.
Yeah.
Sorry to say. Art excursions, painting, drawing, stuff
going to galleries and stuff,
I mean, just sketch yourself what you feel, it is, or watch a movie and then comment about it. It's the usual stuff that, in any school around the world would teach about art. Yeah,
I don't know how long our lessons were, maybe 45, maybe an hour, I don't know, but I remember being sort of just given a little bit of freedom most of the time, like here are some materials, do something. The teachers were a bit wacky, a bit unusual, not in a bad way, just really a little bit eccentric. And I enjoyed art. It was actually one of my better subjects. Not that I make that sound like I was an idiot, but it was my best subject actually.
Really?
Art was my best subject, and my teacher really expected me to get the highest mark. I kind of fudged that. We'll talk a bit about that later, but art was my best subject. Then science and English were very good subjects for me too. I really enjoyed.
To be honest, I fudged art too in high school. Yeah. I didn't get a good mark in it.
So we'll talk about that in a second. I have a question for that.
Okay, fine.
Did you ever aspire to be an artist?
Yeah. I mean, when I was a little kid, obviously my mother forced me to play piano, as many Korean families do.
Okay.
All right. But obviously I gave that up at some point in my life.
Okay. It's not obvious to me.
Oh? Well, I mean, if you put a piano in front of me, I wouldn't be able to play it today. Yeah. But when I was about 20, I started making films. So filmmaker. So been doing that for quite a long time now.
Right. Stop motion?
Not stop motion, videos, corporate, commercials, that sort of thing.
People.
Videos, basically.
Showing people, not animated stuff.
No. Live action, what we call.
Right.
Yeah,
live action, exactly. Okay. And I agree, it's a form of art, but maybe other people will not fully appreciate that. So it's an expression of you.
You see, this is where my definition may be a little bit different to some people, and everybody has their own definition on things, right? So to me, an art is, like I said, is an expression.
Yeah.
So a chef baking a wonderful pie, in his own way, has created an artwork. Right?
So I've eaten art.
That's right.
Wow.
Anything is an art. I mean, fashion is an art. Like garments, making clothes is an art.
Right.
You know,
Right.
teaching is an art unto itself.
Right.
Yeah, because everybody has their own style, the way they express themselves to students.
I would even argue that packaging is art.
It can be. Almost anything can be art.
Good art and bad art, of course, too.
Yes.
Depending.
As long as it's an expression of an individual.
Right.
Yes,
right.
a strong expression.
What if it's an expression of a company? If it's a packaging that has been produced.
Okay, all right, wait. So I would argue that the version of that in filmmaking is Hollywood, Marvel, and DC films. Yeah, that is.
You're not a fan?
I know.
Careful.
I know a lot about those worlds and the stories that are around it.
Yeah.
However, you know,
you feel they're too generic and produced.
As I get older,
overproduced.
As I get older, I become more and more anti-corporate.
I'm
culture.
the same age as you, so please don't. I guess I say that too. As I get older,
I'm becoming more anti-corporate culture. So, without, you know, to be honest, I'm not being very fair here often. But anything I hear about corporations, it becomes negative in my mind.
Okay.
So I have a little bit of prejudices.
I'm trying to promote kind of a controversial topic here. Kind of trying to poke the bear.
Art is controversial. It always has been, or it always will be, and it has always been at the centerpiece of many revolutions.
Art is controversial. Okay, I'm trying to be artsy here. Okay. So, what is the piece of art you're most proud of? I'm presuming, as we understand that you're an artist, I'm a kind of an artist, but I don't do it as a profession, never have. I should have answered that question. Did I ever aspire to be an artist? When I finished school, went to art college, and I hated it. I was there 16 years old, 17 years old, and I hated it. And because the style, some of it was good, some of it was genuinely good, but I just wanted to do art.
What type of art?
It was, well, so we spent a lot of time learning about the history of art.
Okay.
We did do quite a bit of drawing and such like that, which drawing was fine. Learning about history was actually fine too. I loved learning about Leonardo da Vinci. I loved and I kind of did my own version of some of his stuff, not nearly as good as he, but I kind of did my own version of his sort of stuff and enjoyed it, where I used kind of sketches, and then I used chalks, and then fine liner pens, dark pens over it as well. And it was kind of based on some of his stuff, and I really enjoyed that. But honestly, I felt completely out of place. All these kind of, to me, more posh people, rich kids, and with a different idea and very philosophical kind of about art. And I didn't fit in with those people, at least not at that time. I don't know if I would now, but I didn't then. And so I gave up on that pretty quickly. But I did try.
Da Vinci is one of my aspirations in life. You know, what makes Da Vinci's work so wonderfully refreshing to the other Renaissance artists is the fact that the man was just not just an artist, but he was also a scientist.
He was a scientist
and an engineer,
and that I respect too.
And if you look at, you look at some of his, artworks, it clearly reflects that these, art at some point was designed with practical application in mind. Yeah,
he kind of designed
mechanical thought,
kind of a helicopter thing.
Yeah, the flying machine. Yes.
Yeah, way back before anyone actually built, and you built and created a real one for proper use.
Of course, it's not. Looking at it through today's eyes, it's nowhere near. It's not aerodynamic.
But the fact that he had that idea.
But he had the idea, but he married it with art.
Yeah.
It's if you look at the engineering diagram of today, you can't say that's art.
Yeah.
But if you look at his engineering diagram of Da Vinci, there is definitely an artistic aspect to it. There's an aesthetic, there's a beautiful,
all the technicality, but also art.
Correct. And if you have a look at his anatomical drawings, there's definitely an artistic aspect, as well as a scientific aspect to it. So the man was what they call, I think, one of the first polymaths in history.
Right.
And
sort of a student of various disciplines.
And you should be.
Yeah.
We live in an information-rich world.
Yeah.
You can study anything this day and age,
Yeah.
right? And
Google it.
It's unlimited.
Google it all, guys.
So
Google
this
it.
whole,
Yeah.
you know, let's focus on one thing and one thing only for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
I think, frankly, is a bit boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What piece of art? So we're moving on, okay? But I like your thinking. You're my kind of guy. What piece of art are you most proud of from what you've created? Of course.
Nothing.
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 You're not proud of anything.
And I would argue that most filmmakers
Yeah.
are exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed every time.
It never is right.
Uh-huh.
It is
You
never
always
right.
see faults when you look back.
Don't get me wrong. I am not a perfectionist in real
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
I like things to be well organized and ordered. But I'm not, you know, I don't want to say this, but anal. Yeah. Or anal retentive about everything.
Right.
Yeah. So, but however, when it comes to
Google that
your
if you don't
own
know.
art, but however, when it comes to your own art, all you see is mistakes.
Right.
All you see is the one thing that could have been better.
Yeah.
And
I understand this. Yeah.
I understand that sportsmen,
Yeah.
the top elite sportsmen, think the same way.
Right.
They don't think about
Kicking-
the 80% good they did.
kicking
They think about the
themselves.
20% bad they did. Yes.
Pushing to ever be better.
Yes.
My mum worked for a while as a cake decorator.
Oh, really? That's an
And
art.
she was her bit of, absolutely. Oh, if you look at
That's a wonderful art.
building and making bells and flowers
Oh,
from a kind of a paste,
Yes.
edible paste.
Yes.
And they looked fantastic. But she used to criticize herself so much, and we would look at them and say, that looks fantastic. And she would say, I see the mistakes there and there, you know, it wasn't the way I wanted it to be. So, and I can be like that too as an artist. You're like, it's not as good as that guy, or it's not the way I wanted it. It wasn't the way I imagined it in my head before I did it. You know? So yeah, we can be critical of ourselves,
We only see the people, if an artist has trained for years and they've become competent at what they do, the audience is going to look at the art and go, how beauty. They're going to see only the beauty, right? Mostly, right?
Yeah.
But the artists themselves are only going to see the gap.
Right.
Yeah.
They'll see, that
That's
wasn't
right.
the way I wanted it.
Exactly.
and so on. Have you ever had any art disasters?
Yeah,
Disasters.
many times.
It's a disaster.
Many times.
Yeah.
I used to, let's say about 10, 11 years ago,
Yeah.
I was a director in a corporate video company.
Yeah.
So I had a little under a dozen guys under me.
Yeah.
So I was directing. Everybody else was like cameraing, sound, and all that. And the disasters almost always come not from the lack of organization,
Yeah.
not from the lack of direction,
Yeah.
but always from personality clashes.
Okay.
In any organization, like any business, any small business, the problems are always the human ones. Yeah, so it's very simple. Let's say you have a team of 10 people. It only takes one guy with a bad energy to ruin a shoot,
Right.
to ruin the experience.
Something off with him.
Maybe
having a bad
he's got
day.
ego issues.
Right.
He's always, puffing his chest out and trying to be like the boss in front of everybody.
Right.
You get all in art, you're going to get that kind of people.
Yeah.
Right?
It
So
happens.
you have people who have, insecurity issues. They're going to bring that in. Some of them are drama queens. Some of them start yelling and screaming, crying if things don't go their way.
I've heard people say that, and as an artist, I've sort of, that's not very nice, but I've heard people say artistic people are very emotional. And maybe, I don't know if it's true or not, but what do you think? Artistic people are very emotional?
A lot of them are. Not all. I would say all of them, at least in filmmaking, in the areas of performance in filmmaking, I would argue that all of them are there because they're missing something in their lives. And they're trying to fill it with their art.
Right. Okay.
Except the sound recorders. They're just mercenaries. They just get paid. They're like tradies. They come in, they do the job, they use their equipment, they get paid, and they walk off.
Yeah.
Right? But everybody else is pretty much screwed up. There's some area in their lives that's missing. They're trying to fill the whole.
Right. It's kind of like a poet. A poet writes poetry because he feels the need. I
That's
guess.
right. He's drawn to it. He has to do it, and if he doesn't do it, he feels that there's no meaning in his life.
Right.
And I think that's often a trap.
Right.
Yeah, because you're equating your life's worth with your work, which you're never happy with.
Okay.
To understand the fallacy.
Well,
you see that, right?
I would argue that I am happy with my art.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the result, but I am happy when the process is going well.
Okay.
I'm happy when I'm in process
Yes.
of creating something. What I haven't told you yet,
Yes.
and they don't know, maybe,
Yes.
maybe,
No?
is that what I do in a modern day now is when I was in school, drawing was my thing.
Yes.
I loved oil pastels too.
Mm-hmm.
I loved sort of the simplicity of it, that you could be very free and you didn't have to be very detailed. But I also loved drawing where you were very detailed. I wasn't good at painting. My hands always got paint everywhere. As a boy, I got paint all over my hands, and it ended up on the page, and I was very disorganized. And now, as an adult, a few years ago, I started to take up model painting. I mean, like Warhammer and tanks of different kinds.
40K?
40K, everything and anything. I don't do it to play the game. I haven't ever played the game. Not that I'm against it. I do it for the art.
Yeah, when you walk into a normal games workshop, and it is a gallery of art.
It's amazing.
It is a Disneyland for artists.
Color, the form, the detail,
The lighting.
It's fantastic.
It's everything.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I know. Just the arrangement.
And it just brings your imagination alive. I mean, you can think about a lot of the characters. If you talk about Warhammer, they're not real. They're all science fiction.
Of course, yes.
And I love science fiction.
Yes, yes.
So it appeals to me. I consider it pure art, even though you will never find it in an art gallery. I mean, it would be, people would frown upon
It's
it.
commercial art.
Yeah, it is. But I take it and I say, what can I do with it? And I don't necessarily change everything, but I choose my colors. I might add things or change things, swap models. So I know it. I know that part of the skill and talent is already done for me because it's produced. The model is produced. But I enjoy making the choices and the process of building those different models in the way I want, in the color scheme I want. And the result for me isn't as important. I enjoy and take satisfaction in the process. And the result, sometimes I'm disappointed. The result isn't as much as I want, but I enjoy the process. And it's for me, that's the main thing.
What I enjoy about the 40K universe, Warhammer, is...
You play it?
I don't play it. I don't do the models.
Yeah.
But the artistic element that I do love about it, I do engage a lot on, is the story and the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you read the books?
The books, the codex, all that kind of thing. I just find the amount of work that the story artists have put into that particular world is flipping amazing. Lord of the Rings looks like, it feels like a work of an individual.
Yeah.
But, Games Workshop's, 40K universe feels
lots
like
of
decades of teamwork. It really does reflect it in all the factions and whatnot.
I've read some of the books.
The lore, what we call.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And there's lots of backstory. They've built it up.
That's wonderful.
In the 40,000th, the year 40,000 and onwards, all is war. And all of these different aliens are fighting humans, and they're all over the galaxies and universe, all over the universe, traveling to different planets. This one has something that'll kill you in a second, and it's amazing the imagination surrounding it. I enjoy. I love science fiction anyway. So
well, it's the science fiction. It's 40K universe is the lore of it taught me that the British can make good science fiction.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll take that.
Red Dwarf, and I hated these things. Hitchhikers, whatever, get into the galaxy. Right. I thought I was dreadful, but. When I realized that 40K was quintessentially British.
Judge Dredd.
Judge Dredd is wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, that nihilistic viewpoint of humanity that's reflected in 40K and Judge Dredd universe.
Although it's from Britain, but it's set in America in the future. So
I know.
And I think, is the actor that did the last film Australian?
He's a New Zealander, I think.
New Zealand.
Yeah, Keith David.
Pardon me.
Keith.
That's a real faux pas, isn't it? To say, to mix those two people up.
Well, for those who are listening, Australia, New Zealand belongs to Australia. It's Australian territory.
Okay. So
don't tell the New Zealanders that.
That was Mike that said that, not me.
They will belong to our federation in 100 years. I guarantee it.
Australasia.
Australasia.
I was taught in school about Australasia.
New Guinea will come back.
Right.
New Zealand will come back.
Right.
And we'll form a new nation, possibly called Oceania.
Oh, yes. Well,
in the far future.
And Tasmania, it's part of Australia, right? And
yes, that's the last state.
Right.
Yes.
So it'll be connected.
Smallest and the last state.
Which artists or art do you respect? And this is you can kind of do it whatever way you want with that question. What kind of art do you think, wow, that's great, I wish I could do that, or I want to replicate that?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm not going to talk about filmmaking and filmmakers in that case, because I could go on forever. I wish I had some musical talent, because I don't.
Okay.
But I do love listening to music.
Yeah.
And I think the one that I listen to the most these days are two artists. Joe Hisaishi, who is a composer and a maestro, who do all Hayao Miyazaki's films, anime. Are you familiar with Studio Ghibli work?
I am, but
Spirited Away.
Not perfectly, but I've watched one or two.
Spirited Away, things like Howl's Moving Castle, Porco Rosso,
Nausicaa. I've watched Howl's Moving Castle.
Yes. That was a British story originally.
Right.
There was a British story that Hayao Miyazaki adapted into a Japanese anime. And the man who has composed his work for the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
They all his animation have great music in it, and it's made by a man called Joe Hisaishi. And he is fantastic. He came to Australia a couple of years ago, maybe 3.
Yeah.
And I went to his concert, and it was fantastic. It was like seeing a man who dedicated his entire life to music.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a real sight to behold. I hope he comes to Novosibirsk one day.
Yeah.
The ballet theater looks wonderful.
Yeah.
He deserves the ballet theater.
It's huge, by the way.
Yeah. I think it's the biggest ballet theater in Russia. I heard.
So I've heard some conflicting views. I think Bolshoi Theater in Moscow might have a bigger stage now, but it was, at least, if not now, it was the biggest stage in Russia.
I see.
But maybe because they renovated or something in Bolshoi Theater in Moscow, and it might be bigger now. I don't know for sure. But
I see.
Anyway, it's a beautiful theater either way.
Oh, it's wonderful.
I've talked about, as far as who and what I respect. I respect an amazing painter. Charles Monet, I learned about Monet, an impressionist, but to me, for his day, he was kind of looked upon like a sort of modern artist where it was an impression and it wasn't detailed, and he was kind of frowned upon, as I understand. And yet to me, looking at those paintings, they explain everything you need to know. Not a lot of detail necessarily, but there's enough of the nature and the essence and the atmosphere of the place that he was painting for me, and they're fantastic, I think so. And Leonardo da Vinci, of course.
Of course,
we talk about.
That's our favorite, yeah. But interesting in talking about artists, I'd be very much looking forward to seeing Russian art. In fact, I did actually go to a Russian art gallery this weekend.
Right.
Yeah, just near there's a tiny little church at the center of the town, and that's supposed to be the center of Russia, geographical.
Right.
Just about 100 meters down, there is a gray building that has got SSSR logos on it.
Okay.
And that is supposed to be some sort of a museum.
Yeah.
And art. So there was an exhibition of Siberian artists.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went in with a friend of mine, and we really enjoyed the day. And it was good to see. There are multiple levels. I think the first level is painting, traditional just paints and colors. And right at the top is photography, black and white photography from the Soviet days of this nation in Siberia, Moscow, and Georgia. Yeah, during the good times, and from the good times of the Brezhnev era, down to the fall in the 90s. Yeah, and you can see the emotion, the gamut of emotions on people's faces, going from optimism to just uncertainty. Right, was just
it's what I
amazing.
Look like before my coffee in the morning.
Well, they curated it in that way, so that you start off with a high, and then you see the change of mood. And
where's my coffee? Yeah. Wow.
And I think that's something that more people should visit. But like her and I were the only one in the whole place.
Right.
Unfortunately, on a Sunday.
Yeah.
So But yeah, and there was a really, really excellent artist. I think he's Siberian, because it's a Siberian exhibition, called Dmitry Gusev. Yeah, he paints a lot of religious and architectural art, as well as Siberian nature.
Yeah.
And I thought that the man had incredible talent. I mean, you can see by his brushstrokes that he creates such detail with just simple colors. And I think sometimes the best art looks simple, but has incredible detail if you look closely at it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that
and Dmitry Gusev certainly captures that.
Okay.
I feel.
I must admit, I don't often go to. I'm not against art galleries. I just don't often choose to go to an art gallery. But is art in public places necessary?
Art
like
is
sculptures. I mean, out in the park.
Remember what I said, right? Art is an expression of an individual, right?
Right.
We are surrounded by art, whether you like it or not.
Right. Right.
This thing I'm wearing, the shirt.
Yeah.
It was designed by an artist. It is a piece of art. Yeah.
Okay.
If this was a plain T-shirt that was just black and had no patterns on it, I wouldn't call that art.
Okay.
That's just
it's laziness.
No, it's not laziness. It's just practical utensil, a tool.
Right. It's more of an engineer.
That's right. I mean, if I walk outside right here, the architecture of the building just around me is art.
Right.
Right. The streets themselves are designed. If you look at the streets, they have patterns.
I mean,
printed on them.
Well, I'll give you an example, and you can tell me what you think of this. In Belfast, which is the capital of my region, Northern Ireland, there is a sculpture, which is two steel balls, one inside the other, and they're open. I mean, they're triangular formed and stuff, and they're open balls, and you can see both of them. And it was not cheap. I'll not tell you the price. I don't know, but it was installed in 2008, which was, or somewhere around that time when there was a economic recession. And of course, it was controversial, as a lot of things can be, because people didn't have much money at that time. People were losing their jobs and stuff. And they were like, why do we need this art? What would you say? Was it necessary at that time? Should it have been kept, melted down maybe, or something?
That's a difficult one. Art or food? That question.
Well, it wasn't. I mean, people survived. At least I hope so. I mean, people still survive, but they were asking the question, do we really need art?
I'm not gonna, be all high and mighty and say art is always necessary in every culture.
Yeah.
Look, I understand the basic necessities trump artistic endeavors sometimes. And I bet you Russia had to deal with that
not
at some
Donald
point. I bet you Russia is probably one nation through a history at some point had to deal with that problem.
Right.
To art or to food.
Yeah.
So, it's...
Art is kind of like the soul of a person, isn't it? I mean, the soul of a nation, art.
Art is very important. It is. Art is the only thing we will leave behind for the future generation of humanity to see us and know who we are.
Maybe history.
Well, think about Roman culture. We know, so much of what we know today is because they left artworks behind. They left writing behind. True. They wrote things, and they actually love making
arches, beautiful arches.
Art reflects the culture.
Yeah.
It tells us what those people loved, what they feared, and what they hoped. Yeah? Yeah. And what they valued. And what they despised. Who they despised.
I agree.
Yeah? So if you look into art, you will see the aspects of that.
Right.
Yeah? So it is very important for us to leave behind that to the future of humanity, so that they can look at us and understand how crazy consumerist, how crazy consumerists we were. So it's very important to leave behind art, even though if you are hungry, it's a legacy.
Right.
And I think if you were hungry and there was no jobs at the time, there should be artworks that reflect that period.
Right.
So that the future of humanity can see that Belfast at this time period.
Yeah.
If you look at these art, you can see the uncertainty of the people.
Maybe they should change that sculpture to make it more.
I think so. Perhaps.
Do you like modern art?
I love any forms of art. I don't like abstract art, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is it's more modern. It's not exclusively modern, but and modern isn't exclusively abstract, but abstract is like a form of modern art, isn't it?
I just never understood people like Jackson Pollock or Picasso.
Right. Someone wrote Armut on a toilet and put it like a urinal toilet and put it in an exhibition. Would that appeal to you? Would you like to look at a urinal in an art exhibition?
Well, it depends on what he wanted to express or she wanted to express.
Yeah.
And what's the story here?
I honestly don't know.
That's what you got to find
out. I think if an artist doesn't say or show what they're feeling, maybe it's not worth so much. I don't know. Maybe they wanted to say, look, what we even the things that we use for, not dishonorable things, but we don't put any honor in. Maybe he or she was trying to say that they are still art and still important. I don't know. But I think modern art is kind of, people couldn't go any further with just drawings and just copying nature and paintings. I think modern art was a kind of natural necessity in order to be different from the last generation of artists. But if I'm honest, I'm not a lover of it in general. Of course, it depends on what it is.
I see.
But I'm kind of hoping that art changes and goes back to a more maybe skillful, thoughtful, pensive approach. Okay, so we have talked quite a bit about art. That we spoke about what is art in our estimation, our experience in school with art. Did we ever want to be artists? What piece of art we're proud of or not? Art disasters we may have had. Is art necessary in public places? We talked about visiting galleries and such like that. So that was the Craic about art.